Hello everyone, welcome to People and Earth, a show about sustainable living that addresses the issues our planet faces. Today, we are joined by Cliff Chivanga, Deputy Director of Zimbabwe Sunshine Group, Sharon Hook, Miracle Missions Trustee and Head of Waste Management, Clean and Green, Delight Bumira, SDG and Environmental Officer. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Before we start our discussion, let's take a look at what happened at the 11th edition of the Africa Green Waste and Energy Expo. Let's take a look.
We have a lot of factors that have affected our environment. For example, land pollution, water pollution, through spillage of oils in our dams, in our seas. And everything was just a mess when it comes to the oil spillage that happens. Forgive me for the shit. Alright. So, as children, when it comes to oil spillages to the seas, I've found that some kids were actually restricted from going out to the sea because it was polluted with oil.
Within our different environments, we have a lot of disposal ways that are not really conventional because at the end of the day, the harm comes back to us. We have waste dumps, mines. When we look at it, the waste dumps in mines, we create an atmosphere that is not conducive for anyone to inhabit because that waste that is underground does not support any inhaling of any sort. Thus, we get a toxic atmosphere, breathing problems, and lung cancer.
Welcome back. Now, I'll begin with you, Cliff. Zimbabwe Sunshine Group recently hosted the 11th edition of the Africa Green Waste and Energy Expo. In a nutshell, what is the event all about and your motivation to host it?
Okay, thank you very much, Makanaka. I think I'll just give a bit of a background in terms of what the Green Expo is all about. So the Green Expo is a platform that started in 2012. And it started as a community event, which was something that was done just for a district, and young people would come together with their crafts and things that they were doing within the waste management sector. So they would come and just do the exhibitions in a small community in Mapuku. Then after the first edition of that expo, there was interest from the people that we invited and the institutions that also supported the first edition. And that's when we started having a provincial expo, which was just looking at Harare. And then the expo moved from being a provincial expo because of the support it gained and also the impact that it actually it was coming out of that expo. And then we then started to have a national event, which became an annual event that we're hosting every year. And then from being an annual event, because of the impact of the program, because the resolutions that were coming out of the Green Expo were being implemented, it then attracted regional participants. And that's when we started having regional participants from 2016 that were coming in from the SADC region to come and participate at the Green Expo. And we then realized that it became an African event. That's why it's the Africa Waste and Green Energy Expo, where we are now having quite a number of countries that come and participate at this platform. But I think what this platform stands for is a platform that creates an opportunity for ecological, scientists, people who are looking at climate science, people are looking at climate change, or looking at policymakers. It also looks at practitioners, people who are running businesses within the waste and energy sector. So these are the people that come together under one roof to discuss the solutions, best practices, and also introspect the policies that we have. Do we have the right legal and legislative environment for people to be actually undertake climate action? So these are some of the discussions that take place during the Green Expo.
Okay, so you said you started from the provincial level to the national level, now at the regional level. So which countries were there at this year's Expo and other organizations which took part in the program?
Okay, we had quite a number of an overwhelming response in terms of people coming to the Green Expo, as we know that we're coming from COVID-19, where there were restrictions in terms of traveling. But we still managed to have over 9 countries that actually participated. So we had countries like Angola, South Africa, Eswatini, Lesotho, we had Malawi, Zambia, as well as Mozambique and Botswana. So those are the countries that actually participated physically. But I think we had also about 5 countries that participated virtually that could not come because of the travel restrictions that were still there. And but we hope that in future we'll still be having the numbers that go over 20 countries coming to participate.
Okay, but as you mentioned earlier, those are quite a number of countries which participated this year. So Delight, I now come to you. I heard that you coordinated a mock COP24 for children at the Expo. What is it all about?
Thank you so much, Makanaka. So it's COP27. So usually each year countries meet. It's called Conference of Parties, that's COP. So this year it's going to be COP27. And we realized that most of the programs that happen in terms of climate change, they don't include the children. But what we want to do is to catch them young and watch them grow. So we need to start from the lower level up until we get to the decision makers.
Sure.
So for this year, we decided that we have a separate conference. It was running in parallel with the main Green Waste and Energy Expo. So we had children from different schools that came, and the COP, it was to just have a simulation of what happens in the during the Conference of Parties. This year, the Conference of Parties is going to be held in Egypt, and we realized that it's key to make sure we educate these children. They should know what happens during the Conference of Parties. So it was a simulation. The children were trained on how they relate to Conference of Parties, how they relate to climate change issues, what is the Paris Agreement all about, because it's key for them to know as they get into their careers, they should be aware of these things because they were affected. We mentioned we have the cyclone Idai and the effects it had, especially on the children. Their school, their education was affected. So they should be aware of these things. And that's then how we realized it's key for us to have children in these discussions. So having a separate conference was to make sure they can feel free, because it will be just their peers. They can share their experiences, they can share the knowledge that they have, and they can also be educated on how they can they can be responsible for their environment, because we are saying it's everyone's responsibility. So that's how we came about the model COP27. So just like at the COP discussions, we have the COP presidency and things like that. The children acted as head of states, they acted as the COP presidents and things like that.
Wow.
It was a very insightful a conference.
Welcome back. We're talking about the 11th edition of the Africa Green Waste and Energy Expo. So now, Cliff, the conference covers several sustainable development goals, especially number 7 and 9. As we move towards the deadline of the SDGs, what are your plans to amplify waste management and clean energy awareness in the last 6 years of the goals?
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's very important to highlight that there are several efforts that have been done by government. If you look at the nationally determined contributions, NDCs, there's a strategy on implementation on some of the issues that we actually highlighted during the Green Expo. And so within the nationally determined contributions, you realize that there are IPCCs sectors that are 4, and there's a sector for waste management, and there are clear targets in terms of what must be achieved. And as an organization, we are a lead entity there, and there's efforts that we hope we can actually work with development partners and many other organizations in order to achieve the targets. So as an organization, we have quite a number of activities and projects that we have lined up in terms of rolling out. But I think what is important is for us to heighten the awareness and education within communities for people to actually uptake some of the initiatives that must be done. Because I think for those initiatives to be sustainable, there's need for communities to be the drivers for the initiatives. And that would then increase the uptake. So I think we have quite a number of initiatives that ranges from public awareness campaigns that are going to be done. But obviously, as an organization, we believe in advocacy through impact demonstration of projects. So we have projects that have been implemented within communities, in strategic communities, where we are going to be inviting communities to come and showcase the impact of the projects. And if people see the benefits of the projects that are being implemented, they will then be able to find resonance and the reason for them to participate. And I think that's one of the major things that must be done. Because for waste management, it's an issue, if you look at the waste generation statistics, it's the households that generate the most. And so for us to be able to have effective waste management systems that are put in place, or projects that are going to be actually done to achieve the targets, we need the individuals to play a role, and there must be awareness, and that is something that we are working on.
Sure. So given that there is a lot of work which needs to be done, what were the resolutions of this year's edition, and how do you intend to ensure their implementation?
Okay, there were quite a number of resolutions that came out of the Green Expo. I think there is a framework that we have established with the Secretariat of the Green Expo, as well as the regional delegates that came, because we now have a regional secretariat, as well as the national secretariat that is looking at Zimbabwe. So what we have done is, from the 13 resolutions that have come out, I'll just mention, I think, 4 of them. And then the rest, they are going to be publicized on our websites and other platforms. So the first one that we have is the resolution to say there must be a monitoring and evaluation mechanism or framework for the Green Expo to ensure that the resolutions are implemented. And that process is being done with the regional and the national secretariat. Then the second aspect looks at mainstreaming the participation of women and youth and communities, especially when it comes to the processes of climate action. And the third one looks at establishment of a national center of excellence that brings together all the solutions, green solutions that we can talk about, from waste management and the energy sector, put them under one roof so that people can go and see practical solutions working, and then people will be able to look at projects that they can actually go and implement within their communities. And that's the third one. And the fourth one, it looks at increase, we said development partners must increase the support, the funding that is available for waste management and energy projects within the context of green solutions. So those are the 4 main resolutions that actually came out of that. But I think my colleague is going to also share some of the resolutions that came from the Children's Conference.
Yes, sure. I was about to come to you, Delight. So tell us, what were the resolutions which were made at the Children's Conference?
Thank you so much. So from the Children's Conference, they mainly feed into the main resolutions for the whole conference. But what I'll mention, which is different from the main conference, was that from now onwards, we are going to have a children's group. It's sort of a chapter for the children where they'll be doing projects to do with climate action, waste management, energy. So these projects they'll be doing, we'll be having competitions with them so that we don't just engage them when we are having the conference. We should have projects that are up and running throughout the year. And then when you come to the Green Expo, we can have then competitions with the children so that they move from we move from policy to action. And the other resolution was to involve the children when we go to the COPs. We have COP27 that is coming in, and we are thankful to the Minister of Environment because they assured us that they are going to make sure they include children in many programs that have to do with in the environmental issues and climate issues. So that's also another resolution that came out of the Children's Conference. And also the other resolution was to have a conference, maybe a 2-3 day conference with the children, where we can have different organizations that have to do with environmental issues and climate issues. They can come and then educate the children, not just a 1 day like what we did. Resources permitting, it's our hope that before this year ends, we can have a mini conference for the children, specifically for them. Then we can have programs as we plan ahead of 2023 to say what do we want to do, and have a work plan with the children as we get into 2023. Thank you.
So how are you finding it working with children on such a very important topic? I mean, how are the children finding it?
Okay, so it was really interesting. The children are eager to learn.
Sure.
The children really want to be involved and take action in these issues. So they actually, these recommendations and the resolutions are actually coming from what they said. They said, we want to be involved.
Sure.
We want this, we want to take this to another level. So it was amazing because, you know, when you are engaging someone and they respond positively, it means whatever you are telling them is actually of importance. So it's really nice working with children, and I think going forward is going to be an amazing experience having them and even leading in most of the projects, because we want the green conference for the children to be led by the children themselves. This year, yes, we were the ones leading because it was a start, but we want them to organize themselves and be the leads in as much as all the conference is concerned.
Thank you very much, Delight, for those remarks. It's quite interesting when children are taught when they are young on such important topic. We shall be taking a short break. We will be back soon, where we'll be talking to Sharon on the use of plastic and its impact on the environment. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. In the last segment, Cliff and Delight told us about the resolutions which were made at the conference and a lot of work which needs to be done in our country and at the regional level. Now we are talking to Sharon. Sharon, plastic waste poses a major challenge to the environment, and there have been calls to shy away from plastic use and divert to sustainable product. Sharon, is that practical?
Practical, maybe not, but necessary. We really have to do something about the plastic waste in our nation and in the world. The world has seen it as a major problem and hope to get rid of plastic by the year 2040. So we've got a lot of work to do to find other solutions for the waste in our nation.
So what alternatives are there besides plastic, and how can we affect that change?
In our country at the moment, we've got other sustainable solutions for plastic. We've got the use of single-use plastic made from mushrooms. We've got the use of bamboo as well, with that single-use plastic. But then we have to rethink how we're going to reduce the plastic waste, replace the plastic waste, and look at the alternatives. And so I think more and more the world will find those solutions and replace the plastic. In our nation, in Zimbabwe, it is a real major problem. And it is in the rest of the world, but for us, it's become major in the fact that people are using it to cook their food in our communities, and we see it everywhere, even in low density areas where they're cooking commercially for people. They are using plastic to start those fires, and the effects of that plastic. And of course, plastic never, ever, ever, ever biodegrades. It will always go to a nanoplastic, a microplastic, and it will always be there. And it will even we're drinking plastic that gets absorbed through our plastic bottles and that. So it is so major that I don't think Africa or the world realizes the effects of plastic on our health, on our environment, on our wildlife, on our animals, on the food that we eat. And so major things have to be done. And there are lots of alternatives with mushroom, biodegradable, compostable items that can be composted. Yes.
So what other ways do you think that people should be taught about the major effects of the use of plastic? Like you said, people cook with plastic, they don't even know the side effects of that. Mm-hmm. How do you think that the word must be spread to the people so that they know about such dangerous effects?
I think it's more and more, it needs to come through education. And this is where it'll come through the children. I mean, children are so ready to learn. So it needs to be taught at very, nursery level, even from a very young age, the dangers of it, coming away from a fire. And you must also know as well that in Zimbabwe, children come near the fire, and the burns that are affected through plastic are 10 times worse than a wood burn or a water burn even, because it's plastic that just goes, the heat of plastic will just burn straight down to serious burns. And we've seen it in our hospitals where little children. So the education must come through. And I think this can come through even mothers, even expectant mothers, to know that they mustn't be near burning waste. They mustn't, the effects of waste in our communities because of rats. All of that needs to be taught at a level when a mother maybe is expecting a child, because she's protecting it in the womb and then she's protecting it outside. And the women are bringing up our children, and it cannot be left to the older woman to bring up the children. And that's often is happening when gogos are bringing up their children and are forced to cook their food with plastic, and they don't know. So I think it comes through the school, and I think a greater education has to come as we begin to ban plastic, single-use plastic. Our nation's going to do that next year. By the end of the next year, we'd say that single-use plastic, which is that film, that very soft plastic that you put your veggies in and at the supermarket, and that you cling wraps and you cover things with. Those need to go in our environment, and the awareness must come through education. But even at children's level, education, it's too late. It needs to come from the mothers carrying the babies in the womb, and realizing the dangers of burning plastic.
Sure, yeah, I also agree. There's great need for education for people to know, because I do see that people, they just use plastics and they don't even know the side effects of that. Well, thank you guys for sharing with us such important information about our planet and Earth and everything. I hope we'll see you guys next time talking more about this topic again.
It's a pleasure being on this platform. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for the invite.
Sure. And of course, thank you for joining us on People and Earth. We hope you have learned a great deal about the efforts being made to raise awareness for sustainable practices and reduce the damage to the earth and its natural resources. Make sure to do your part in small ways every day by picking litter, choosing paper products over plastic, and spreading the message with others. Let's ensure we foster a fruitful world for our children and theirs. Until next time, do stay safe.